Man, I'm rusty. Not keeping track on the time on this thing. Anyway. What was I saying? Oh. Basically, you don't want to do anything to make it sound like you're condemning another person. Obviously, you know what is right. But it's not lawful for you to argue with another to the point where it causes somebody to stumble. You know, some people will adapt to a certain situation a lot quicker than others. Like, for example, most, and I believe that there are very sincere, godly people, and, you know, that go to church on Sunday, or that acknowledges Sunday, and you get somebody coming up and like, hey, you're not supposed to be worshiping on that day, da 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 da. See, that's not right. That is what I believe that Colossians 2:16 is saying, is that let no man therefore judge you in meat or in drink or in respect of any holy day or of the new moon or of the Sabbath days. That is what I believe that is saying. You know, because obviously you're going to have to show that person why you believe the way it is, and show them from Scripture, and show them from Scripture alone. And it'll be up to that person if they want, you know, if they acknowledge that or not. But don't sit there and say, you know, in a condemning version that, you know, you can't do this, you can't do this, you're wrong, you're wrong. You know, because regardless if you're a Sabbath keeper or not, we all have our issues and we all have our faults. And we all sin and fall short. Just because you're a Sabbath keeper doesn't mean you're a holier-than-thou person. Okay? That's basically what I think Colossians 2:16 is saying there. You know. But there's a lot of controversy between this. Now I want to read you an article. Obviously, God started the Sabbath day. This was started back in creation. The word Sabbath wasn't used in the book of Genesis. But obviously there is plenty of evidence that it was being observed. For on the seventh day God ended his work which he had done, and he rested on the seventh day from all his work which he had done. Then God blessed the seventh day and sanctified it, because in it he rested from all his work which God had created and made. It's not because he was tired. Genesis 2:2 and 3. Because God rested on the seventh day, he designated it a holy day to be remembered for all time. Remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. He says in the fourth commandment, 6 days you shall labor and do all your work, but the seventh day is the Sabbath of the Lord your God. Again, God designed the Sabbath to commemorate his creation as a sign of our salvation. You know, God knew that in our human tendencies to further our own interests, we would need opportunities for spiritual growth, to refocus on things of eternal importance. The Sabbath is an opportunity to break away from the pressures of everyday living, which is definitely very true. You know, we look at the history of it, how the Sabbath was changed, and you know, there's a whole, the history is very, very in depth. Let's see how the Sabbath was changed today. want to answer the question which so many listeners have been concerned about since our first broadcast on the Sabbath question. How did the change take place? And there's no change documented in the Bible. There's none. You know, you can spit at me, argue, yell, scream at me all you want. There was nothing in the Bible that says the Sabbath was changed. Nothing. The seventh day, Saturday, is the only day ever designed by the term Sabbath in the entire Bible. Not only was Jesus the perfect example in observing the weekly seventh-day Sabbath, but all his disciples followed the same pattern after Jesus had gone back to heaven. Yet no intimation of any change of the day is made. The Apostle Paul, who wrote pages of counsel about lesser issues of Jewish and Gentile conflicts, had not one word to say about any controversy over the day of worship. Circumcision, foods offered to idols, and other Jewish customs were readily challenged by early Gentile Christians and the church. But the weightier matter of weekly worship never was an issue. Why? For the simple reason that no change was made from the historic seventh day of Old Testament times and from creation itself. Had there been a switch from the Sabbath to the first day of the week, you can be sure the controversy would have been more explosive than any other to those Jewish Christians. Obviously, a lot, things really started to change when Constantine came into power. Basically, Constantine was a so-called Christian, but he had pagan roots, and he still held to those pagan roots. Well, Rome obviously is a pagan nation, and obviously the persecutions of Christians that they have done. So basically, Constantine comes in and says, you know what? Let's just all get along. The pagans and the religion, and the Christians, we all get along. We can all work together. And, and that's how that basically came about. And a little paragraph here. By the time Constantine was established as the Emperor of Rome in the early 4th century, there was a decided division in the church as a result of all these factors. I think most of you know that Constantine was the first so-called Christian emperor of the Roman Empire. The story of his conversion has become very well known to students of ancient history. He was marching forth to fight the Battle of Milvian Bridge when he had some kind of vision and saw a flaming cross in the sky. Underneath the cross were the Latin words meaning, "And this sign conquer." Constantine took this as an omen that he should be a Christian and his armies as well. He declared all his pagan soldiers to be Christians and became very zealous to build up the power and prestige of the church. Through his influence, great blocks of pagans were taken into the Christian ranks. But friends, they were still pagan at heart, and they brought in much of the paraphernalia of sun worship to which they continued to be devoted. We mentioned in a previous broadcast about the adoption of Christmas and Easter into the church. At the same time, many other customs were Christianized and appropriated into the practice of the church as well. So basically, that's how the whole Sunday thing started to take its course. I mean, as the years progressed and days progressed, sun worship was the main thing, in the Roman culture. There were sun worshipers. The word Sunday, in some dictionaries actually refer to the venerable day of the sun, as in line of sun worship. It's Luciferian doctrine. It's Luciferian worship. And most Christians today don't realize this, and don't acknowledge it. They just say, oh, because they worship God on Sunday, then that just means that's it. That's good enough. But that's simply not the case. Stay tuned for the next video.